My name is Yang Nguyen. I am a management analyst working for the city of Burien. And I'm telling you, it's like coming home for me. I see so many familiar faces. I have been here in the community for over 2 years, working for a nonprofit just up the street from here. And it's great to be back in the community where it's all started for me. Well, first of all, I would like to thank our host tonight, the Henry family, David, Jessica, and Aiden. Oh, there it is. Our gracious host with the iced tea and the cookies. Please help yourself. One kind of housekeeping item is over there is the restroom. Anybody need to use it? Over there is the sign-up sheet. Please sign in so we and then receive the most up-to-date information on the issue. Just be aware that any information you're going to leave with us is going to become public information. Also, we have the FAQ. It's available in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, Cambodian, and Somali. And grab a few of them, hand it out to your friends, your co-workers, your neighbors, and get people informed on the issue. Just want to, in the interest of time, and just to value your time, to be with us this evening. Let's get started, and I would like to introduce the city manager of the city of Burien, Mike Martin.
Thanks, John. Can everybody hear me all right? Can you hear me? Christine, can you hear me? Okay. Good. If for some reasons I'm not talking loud enough, because, for example, the sergeant and the reporter in the back are speaking too loudly. Oh, sorry, Henry. Ralph, sorry about that. Sorry. That's all right. I am Mike Martin, the city manager. Thanks for having us. And Jessica and David, thank you very much. Great space. I really like the booze for local business. I'm going to get you out of here in about an hour and a half, unless there's something really pressing that everybody wants to talk about. This is really about answering your questions, so I'm going to give you a small amount of information, and I'll kind of fill in the gaps as you have things that you want to ask. I was telling Jan just before the meeting, you think you come into these things prepared, and almost invariably somebody asks something you never anticipated. So if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know, and we'll try to get that information back to you. One thing I wanted to point out, this little brochure, it's a really good brochure. It's written in plain English or Vietnamese or Somali, whatever it happens to be, but this is a really good little fact sheet. But one thing I really wanted to call your attention to is that on the bottom and the back are some contact information and some website information where if you have any questions at all, you'll oftentimes be able to look at this website and you'll see them. See the answers to that. So please check it out. There's also a phone number there if you want to talk to somebody directly. So I just wanted to call your attention to those resources. So annexation has been going on the discussion of annexation has been going on for an awful long time. It's highly contentious. Everybody has an opinion. Very few people actually have the facts. And so what I'm going to try to do tonight is give you just straight, unvarnished facts and try to answer your questions. You're all well aware that in 2010, the city of Burien annexed what is now called North Burien, which is the area just southwest, about 116, give or take, all the way to Burien's northern border. The annexation we're talking about tonight goes from the northern Burien border all the way to Roxbury, all the way to 99 and over to 30th Avenue. So basically everything between Burien and Roxbury. We're often interested in the fact that a lot of people are unclear about whether they're in the annexation area or not. And we actually have we do have a locator on the web, right?
We do?
Yeah, so if you go to our website and you're uncertain whether you're in the annexation area or not, you can just type in your address and it'll tell you yes or no. And it'll locate you. So you'd be amazed at how many people don't know that. So at any rate, the city of Burien, thanks to the first annexation, is now a city of about 45,000. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary here next year, in February. The annexation that is being proposed now We would add about almost 18,000 residents, so we would be, give or take, right around 65,000 people. We would take in roughly 8,500 acres. In that area, the process would be if there was a successful annexation vote in November, then the council would select a time to actually implement the annexation. I guess it would be sometime in the spring. That's what we did last time. So conceivably, this time a year from now, if the vote was successful and the council acted as they have in the past, this area conceivably could be in the city of Burien. City of Burien is governed, we have what's called a council manager form of government, which is to say that we have a 7-member city council with a mayor who's kind of selected from among the council members. We have a city manager, that's me, who runs the daily operations of the city. So basically anything that doesn't rise to the level of being a policy matter, I take care of. I've been with the city for pushing 6 years here. My council members, I have some new ones, I have some ones that have been there for a long time. They make real good decisions, and I'm really pleased to work with them. The questions we get asked a lot have to do with who provides services. What are my taxes? Well, taxes. Everybody's different because everybody's in a different taxing district. We have 5 or 6 junior taxing districts, so it really depends on who provides your water, who provides your sewer, who provides electrical. Up here is almost all Seattle City Light. But if you take all that into consideration, property taxes, fees for utilities and that sort of thing, on average it's going to cost about $90, $91 per person more in taxes to be in the city of Burien. So again, that's a real gross generalization, but for the average household, 91 bucks, including all your utility fees, all your property taxes and everything. In fact, property taxes go down. In fact, utility fees go up, and they wash out about 90 bucks. Who provides services? Everybody who provides services now for you continues to provide services. School, water, sewer, so those are all the same. All your utilities are the same, and the school district remains the same. This area is served, the police is provided by the King County Sheriff's Department. The city of Burien has a contract with the King County Sheriff. We're extremely happy with them. We did an audit on the department last year. They came out stellar, and it's my hope to continue working with them for a long time. It's likely that if this area were annexed, what would happen would be that most of the men and women and most of the same equipment would belong to the county one day, and then they would change their uniforms from green to blue, change the stickers on the car, and they'd start working in the Burien Police Department. Sergeant McLaughlin right there is a fine example of Burien's finest right there. So in the two, Burien and the White Center cops work seamlessly right now. They work literally together all the time, and they have for many years, and they're going to continue. So they all know each other, they know the area, and I'm really happy with that arrangement. Fire District 11 provides most of the fire protection up here, not all of it. Fire District 2 provides provides all of the fire protection in Burien and Northern Park. In fact, it's a little more complicated. Fire District 2 provides on contract some of the fire protection up into the White Center area, and they would basically sign an agreement, Fire District 2 and 11, about how the fire protection will continue to be provided. So that's a little bit less clear than the police department or police protection, which is pretty much cut and dry. So I'm trying to think of the other things that often come up. Will my house be rezoned? Is Burien going to impose additional property taxes? No and no. For those of you that are interested, zoning will by and large stay the same, at least in the short term. If it follows suit, what we did in the first annexation, we generally adopt what's called an interim zoning, which is identical to the county zoning, or as close to it as we can get it. And then the community will tell us what they want their community to look like. So, for example, we had a fairly contentious issue on Ambon. In Burien, we have zoning that only allows for 24 units per acre. The county has a zoning that allows for 48 units per acre. And so when we annexed the first part, people were going, well, what happens when we get down zone from 48 to 24, what goes on? And so what we did was we said, no, we're going to just hold still for a little while until we can kind of get our act together. And we sat down with the community, and we started working with them to figure out what sort of zoning is preferred by the community and what works with the larger city. I think you'll find one of the hallmarks of Burien that I'm very proud of, despite what you sometimes hear, is that we really listen. We want to know what you have to think. And that's, we're not going to put C curving down 16th without talking to businesses. Ain't going to happen. We don't do things that way. We're not going to put in a low-income housing development on Puget Sound Park without checking with residents. We just don't do that. And we have a very consistent record that we can point to and demonstrate that the examples of that. And that's the way we like to operate. We like to talk to the community a lot, and we do. Sometimes we hear a lot of things we don't want to hear. Sometimes we hear things that aren't true. But usually at the end of the day, we get a sense of where the community is at, and that's helpful. So we have, I got my police chief coming, but said something about the dog ate the homework or something, or stuck in traffic in Seattle. So Chief Kimmer will be here shortly to join us. If he's not, in the future I'll press the august Sergeant McLaughlin in the service to help us out with that. But until the cops arrive, what I'd like to do, if you're ready to do this, I'd like to kind of answer your questions and see what I can do there. So, what can I tell you?
I have a medical marijuana dispensary in Top Hat. There's 3 other ones in White Center. What's the story on that?
Medical marijuana is not a licensed business by the state. It wouldn't be allowed to do it.
Even though I'm there before you were there?
That's correct.
How in the hell does that work?
Well, the state doesn't give you a business license, so we can't either. That's different, for example. So I'm going to draw the distinction for you. So Burien doesn't have any adult stores in it either. That's not something that we allow in the city, but it's a grandfathered, it's a lawful grandfathered business, and so we would allow that.
And why is it a dispensary, a co-op? Why isn't my business that way?
Because it's not a business that is acknowledged or recognized by the state. And I'm glad that's kind of very specific, and I knew that was going to come up. I talked to my city attorney about that before coming up here today, and we're glad to talk about that.
You can have a lawsuit there.
Yep.
So, what does Burien get out of this? Like, why is it good for the Burien residents and Burien businesses to get an annex White Center?
Look at this street. This is what we get. There's a gentleman here whose father bought a building across the street in 1940. It was a theater at the time. And this area has an incredibly rich history with good, hard-working, blue-collar people who have a lot to contribute to our city. There's a large immigrant population here. They have great family values. They work hard. They want to get ahead, and they deserve to. That's the altruistic answer. Okay, so I came from San Francisco before I came to Burien. The Mission District looked remarkably like this area did before, and then it gentrified. Why did it gentrify? Because it was time for it to change its game. This area is close to Seattle, so we have 2 major sports stadiums, we have 2 major hospitals, we have 1 major university. You're close to all the shopping there and the South Center Mall. So from a purely economic standpoint, this area is going to gentrify. It has to. It has to. The property is going to be too valuable. Now, it may decline. Without attention, this area most likely would decline. If it's given the sort of attention that was given Burien, it's not only, it's going to stay where it is and climb out much faster. Burien looked remarkably like White Center did 20 years ago. If you go into Burien, you'll see what focused attention looks like, how that translates. And that was caused because people just took ownership of it and said, here's our vision, here's what we're going to do in this community. And every year we just chipped away at it, chipped away at it, chipped away at it. There is no doubt in my mind that this area is going to, it has the same potential. And frankly, I didn't know this area when I moved here, and I was a bit of a skeptic, to be very honest with you. I went into the schools, I went out here, I got to know some people here, and I started to understand the heritage. Our community is joined at the hip with this community in terms of people, married people who went to school here, businesses, they've shopped here, they've shopped down there. there is a dividing line that's called a city limit that is really non-existent in many ways. There is strength in numbers. A city of 65,000 has its advantages. A community of 18,000, which is what you are here, in a county of I don't know how many hundreds of thousands, is basically lost. So I think there's definitely advantages to the community. But listen, my allegiances have to be to the city of Burien. That's who I work for. And I wouldn't be doing this unless I felt in my heart that this was not only the right thing to do from a macro perspective, but that there wasn't something to gain for the city of Burien. I am absolutely dead certain that is the case. Yeah.
Can you explain then why the residents of Burien still get to vote on whether or not they want to annex us?
Is there a lot?
There's quite a lot of opposition right here in Burien.
Well, some of the opposition is here tonight. You could ask them directly after the meeting. I don't know that it's the majority. It's certainly a vocal minority for sure. I disagree with it. I think a lot of it's just mean-spirited and small-minded.
Well, I kind of feel like some of that opposition feels that we're somehow less than them. And it makes it really appealing to be annexed by someone who doesn't like us.
I totally get that, and I think that's part of the strategy. That is not the city of Burien. Trust me. There are people like that in every community. Burien is not alone. But that's a damn good community down there, just like this is a good community. There are good people down there, and they're hardworking people. And, you know, frankly, it's unknown. You know, look at what's happened down there. That area annexed 20 years ago. It took, what, 4 times to actually figure out how to jury-rig the lines so they could get the right people to vote for the thing. So what did we annex? Or what did we incorporate? We incorporated a very wealthy part of the city and a little bit up in the northeast that really hadn't populated there. So, you know, there's a whole bunch of people going, well, who are they up there anyway? You know, where did they come from? Do they share our values? Do they understand who we are? Are we going to be safe? Are we going to have to, our police service is going to get spread thinner? We're going to have, you know, are we going to somehow suffer because we're taking on this other community? And so, you know what, those are not bad questions. The way they're asking them is not so good. But, you know, those are fair questions, and I won't begrudge that. But the fact of the matter is that I think you would be surprised. It's not what it appears to be in the few blogs that are out there. There are seriously good people down there. I know a lot of them. I just happen to know that they make good neighbors. Aristotle.
I'm a homeowner in White Center. I also own my business and property. How does this annexation get impact my business tax and fees?
You know, we have a business and occupation tax. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. Is that on our FAQs now?
How would it compare to, say, King County doesn't have it?
King County doesn't have it, so you're going to be paying more business taxes.
You know what that is?
No, there's not. Is that in the FAQs?
Yeah, it's a 0.05.
I can't do the math right off the top of my head. But there's definitely, there's no business tax in King County. There is a business tax in Burien. So yes, you can pay more taxes in that respect.
There is a small business exemption credit you pay,
Yeah, you have
unless
to-
you're making over a certain
That's
amount,
right.
you pay.
Do you know, I won't ask you what your gross is, but what this gentleman just said is true. There's kind of a limit.
Yeah, I don't think that would qualify.
Okay.
But I don't see it here.
So I know there's a big tax incentive for this whole annexation.
There's a big what?
A tax break, a tax incentive for Burien to take
Yes.
this annexation. Does any part of that come back? Are there any plans for that to come back here to help this community and these businesses
So
grow?
the question was, I know there's a big tax break or incentive associated with the annexation. Does any of it come back to this community? So yes, the state, it's an extraordinary thing actually. The state has a formula for any annexation based on population. And they say if you have a population of a certain amount, there's a formula they crank in, you get a certain amount of money back. In 2009, when Seattle thought they were interested in this area, they went down to the legislature and lobbied for a special tax incentive. And the incentive was that if you annex this area only, this is the only one in the state, for 10 years, each of the 10 years, the state gives the annexing agency $5 million a year. So the tax incentive you're talking about is $5 million a year for 10 years. And the answer is that by law, that money has to come back to this community. The money was intended for this community because Seattle and Burien to some extent made a case that there were needs here that were extraordinary to this community that didn't exist, for example, in Kirkland, where they recently had an annexation. Kirkland doesn't need the same kind of attention that this area does. The state legislator says, yep, we know White Center, we need to do some things there, and it's worth it to us to provide them money. That money has to come to this area. And so we have to show that we're spending it in this area and that it's not going somewhere else.
Do we have plans for that yet, or is it still kind of in the
So,
works?
do we have plans for it? And
Yeah.
the answer is yes. When we went before the boundary review board, we had to say, generally, how are we going to spend the money that comes, or where's the money going to come from? How are we going to spend it, right? So, in regards to the budget for this area, almost half, maybe even more than half, is spent on cops. That's what it costs. Then some 20 to 30, we're going to have to add some 20 to 30 positions in city government to take care of the stuff that Parks is a big one. Parks is a very big one. There's going to be some internal service stuff and just general bodies that we have to have. But the money all has to be attributable to this area. So generally cities have three major sources of taxes: property tax, sales tax, and utility tax. So each of those three go into a general fund, and from that general fund, money just kind of goes out to where you need it. But the tax incentive that you're speaking of generally has to be spent in this area for these area improvements. In addition, there are other sources of funds. For example, we have what's called a stormwater management fee, and it's a fee that's collected, and it goes into what's called an enterprise fund for the specific purpose of repairing storm drains. Right? So there are a few things like that going on in a few special accounts. So yeah, the money that comes from the state has to be spent in this area. Could I get the questions from the area residents before I go to the Burien residents, please?
I think that's rude. I'm a participant at this meeting the same as
I
anybody else.
understand it. Any other, do we have somebody from Burien who would like to ask questions? Do we have other? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we be able to retain our identity as White Center. I mean, I understand, Burien is a city and they have their identity and you're downtown and things, but what about Jubilee Days and our festivals and our uniqueness? Will that be maintained? Will there be money put into that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because I think one of the things that interests me personally about this area is it's got its own distinct, I don't know what it is, but it's distinct. Right?
We are.
Personality, thank you. Yeah.
We're quirky.
Yeah, you're perfect. And so how we make that stay, I think, is really important. I don't think there's as much as the communities are like each other, this is clearly its very own distinct area. So, we think of, like I heard you say, downtown. I want to start thinking of two business districts, right? This business district gets to have its own identity. The people who live here get to say what that is. Likewise, Jubilee Days is a very, very old celebration. It needs to stay. There's more support for Jubilee Days from the community. It's basically funded entirely by the community. Fireworks the same way. And, that speaks volumes to me. I've been there for the last several years. I've watched it, so I understand what you mean. There's nothing but synergy by having this area do better and actually strengthening the culture that's here already. That doesn't mean that works to the detriment of Burien. That it works to the betterment of Burien. There's strength in that. So I think the business district is a great example. This business district will never be what 152nd Street was in Burien. It should be. It's not 152nd Street. It should be something different. And there's a way to do that is sensitive to the culture and the history that's been here for 100 years. And so yeah, we're very interested in preserving that. Okay, any other questions from the White Center residents? Okay, Justine.
First of all, I'd like to clarify something. We don't automatically get $5 million. So to say that we automatically get $5 million is not the way the sales tax credits work. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is the fact that this area looks like Burien did exactly 20 years ago. These areas were distinctly different areas, but those aren't my questions, okay? My question is number one, okay? Does this amount that's on taxes show the new underground wiring tax that City Light has put in for the city of Burien? And if it doesn't, will this area get that?
Yes and yes. Well, yes, this area will pay for the underground tax for first Avenue.
Okay, does this figure show that right here?
I don't know, but we'll check. I didn't put those figures.
Okay, so that's the first question.
So just to clarify the first one, Justine's mistaken. The $5 million comes from the state, comes from the city.
No, it does not. You have to put in for it, and they decide whether they're going to approve it or not.
Okay.
That's always the way. So the second question I have, okay, is who is going to pay off the debt for this North Highline Fire District that they have bonds out on when they annex, or if they annex into the city of Burien? Who will cover that debt?
Well, you should be talking to the fire district about that.
Well, my understanding was that this was supposed to be in place before annexation was advanced. So I assumed that it already had been taken care of. That's why I'm asking the question.
It will be taken care of before annexation.
Okay, so
This is, Justine is asking a question about debt, so-called, between the fire districts. There's a left one issue. There are a lot of old firefighters who are up here that have a very rich pension system. And there's about $1 million, an actuarial debt of about $1 million, $1.2 million, something like that. And the question is, who pays for that? So if Fire District 2 takes over 11, does Fire District 2 then end up paying for that debt? And if so, like, how's that passed on to residents? And my answer is that the fire districts have to work that out. That's something that needs to be worked out between 11 and 2. It's not a city issue. And I don't know what else to tell you. And there will be an agreement signed before annexation. But I want to reiterate, unequivocally, $5 million comes to this area from the state, regardless of the district. Are there any other questions? Go ahead.
That's not guaranteed for 10 years, though. So what happens after next year is gone?
Pardon?
I said that's not guaranteed for 10 years. So what happens when it's gone next year? And like now Burien's been built for White Center, and I feel, it's not fair to the residents of Burien or the businesses of Burien.
The question is, the $5 million is not guaranteed. And to the extent that the legislature can take back something is correct. That is correct. And there was discussion of that in September of this year. That's a great question, and here's what I can say. You're right to the extent that there is nothing that the state ever can say, we were just kidding. Okay? We are among a large number of cities who have gone forward with annexations based on the sales tax credit that the state promised. Brent, Auburn, Kirkland. So big cities that have a lot of clout together, we think it's very unlikely they're going to be able to pull it back. But in fairness, yeah, that's a possibility. And we're trying to do some things that can solidify that more. I was frankly disappointed it was already brought up because it's like we really want you to do this, no, really, but maybe we won't give you the money. But I'd be lying to you if I said that I could stand up here with a straight face and tell you that you can absolutely bet your pension on the fact that it would always be there. I think it's highly unlikely it would go away, particularly given the fact that it remained in this particular legislative session, which is likely to be the worst, and it remained, and it never really came up for serious consideration as the governor's proposal. So, but that's a fair question. Could we get the chief back in here? He keeps coming and going, I'm not sure what to do.
My turn?
Yeah. This is the chief here, like 25 minutes late, right? This thing goes and not
You do okay? I know it's really a bad thing to have your boss have to tap dance while you're waiting for me. If you watch the news, you'll see that there were cow parts all over I-5 and that kind of stuff. So I'm Scott Kimmer. I'm the police chief in Burien, but probably more importantly, I've been with the King County Sheriff's Office for 33 years. I have worked in this area for the better part of 17 years, including I was a supervisor of the storefronts for a number of years. I've done community policing in the North Highline area. I have been the police chief in Burien for 9 years. So I have been involved in this issue since it started through a number of different studies that were done, a number of different community meetings. In fact, I couldn't count how many community meetings that I've been to regarding this. My part of it is strictly to talk about the police department and what the police service would look like if there was a change. And essentially, it's a very simple premise. The police service would not change a lot. There are changes because of if we incorporated the officers that currently work in the North Highline area, and they would be more than likely the same officers. I can tell you that the storefront officer, unless he wanted to change, would be the same storefront officer. BJ has worked for me in Burien and left to come and take the storefront out here, and he's an amazing young man. But we would take the same level of staffing that's currently in North Highline. However, we would be combining that with the Burien Police Department. So now, instead of having the 2 officers that are generally assigned here for 24/7, working 2 different districts, those 2 would be combined with the 4 to 6 officers that work in Burien, and so there is a much better response capability. Not to say that we would be diluting any of the services that are in Burien for here, but essentially what we have determined over the course of time, and again, it's a long period of time that I've been up here, is the crime problems we have in Burien are the crime problems we have in North Highline, with the exception of just a couple ones. But those are things that can be addressed by a city that I don't know that are being addressed by the county. So the police service would remain the same or be enhanced. And that's the simple part of this discussion. And that is my part of it, is how would I incorporate police service in this area with the current police service in the city of Burien. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. I really don't have a whole lot more than that.
So
it would just remain part of the sheriff's office.
So you did say that the storefront officer would stay here then?
Yes.
The storefront would stay in my
Yes. That is in my plan for the North Highline area, that BJ would stay there.
What would happen to, we heard earlier that marijuana establishments would not be allowed in North Highline and Burien. How would that affect stats in this area? Would it change anything, you think? You don't feel bad, I know this is very specific.
The collective gardens, the medical marijuana is so new for us, and we don't have any establishments that I'm aware of in Burien. Doesn't mean that something couldn't have snuck in, but we are not getting any reports of any crime or any issues related to that in the city of Burien. I couldn't tell you if that is, a huge problem right now or not. The one thing that we have seen with the medical marijuana in other places is they've been dropped. There's, they've been ripped off. I don't believe that that's the case here with any of the ones up here. But, the law is so squishy on that right now. And I think for the most part, people are keeping their heads down that are involved in this, and we really haven't seen it really become an issue. Unless somebody else disagrees with me, I haven't seen it.
They're darn good customers.
Huh? I would imagine they would.
No, I know that the dispensaries that are on the street, we've seen business increase probably 10 to 15% on the days that they're open. Because the people are coming to White Center. People are coming to White Center. We've had people coming from all over, and then they come and they say, "Oh, there's a little barbecue shop, or there's a little pie shop there," and so they're coming back to this area. Not to mention all the all the vendors that they're frequenting our businesses.
What we are going to do with that is we are going to enforce the state law, the federal law, whatever that might turn out to be. That's what we are going to do. It's not an emphasis for us. It's not a focus. We are going to enforce the law, and that's in any case. So that may change. Any other?
What else can we tell you? No more questions.
I'm going to something related fire department. We went to a fire commissioner's meeting Monday evening, and I talked to the fire chief of Burien. Basically, what he told me is if we get annexed, we as a citizen will not notice hardly any difference in the fire protection or the medical protection. They do have some small problems with the intermingling of the fire department people, but he said that we would do away with all of our fire commissioners if they get annexed to Burien. Therefore, the money that's available in that area will help solve that problem. And they've had a letter of agreement between Burien and North Highline for 20 years. They work hand in glove. They work very well together, and you can't see any reason for that to change.
I know Chief Mars real well. He is the chief of District 2, and he's the administrative chief in District 11. I talk with Mike all the time, but I think it is accurate to say that they haven't figured out exactly how they're going to do it. These commissioners still have reservations and thoughts about this too, so I wouldn't want to over-promise and say, yeah, they've got this all figured out. But we got plenty of time. We're required to do it before annexation takes place, right? And I just said annexation would be successful in November. If annexation is successful, then we set the implementation date, and that could be some number of months. So I see it as something that needs to be resolved. I don't see it as being solved. Bill?
My understanding is that the chief of District 2 is really the chief. Our chief here is the club as well. I just want to make sure people understand that. There isn't any other fire chief.
Yeah, Gil said it's his understanding that the chief at 2 in Burien is also the chief in 11. And for all practical purposes, that is the case. They are contracting, 11 is contracting with 2 for chief's services, among others. So Mike Mars is his name, is effectively the chief of both departments. So yeah, that's correct.
You were mentioning earlier that Burien has its way of doing things and type of business as there, and we have ours. And like you said, it basically stayed the same. So if we wanted to redevelop this area, like if I were to retire, take my property, want to put up high-rise or retail, something like what you've got in Burien, what do you think my chances would be?
Well, I'll tell you, it's not an easy answer. We're going to ask them. So one of the big question marks and opportunities in my mind is exactly how 2 business centers work together. I don't know that there's ever been a strategic plan on this area right here, like what you would consider to be the downtown core. What's happened in Burien, and I built Kent Station. I built that from scratch, so I have some familiarity with how this works. We're going to ask people, what do you want down here? Like, how high should it be? So let's just say you said, I want to build something. I want some of my property that's 5 stories high. It could be that the fire department couldn't defend that because they don't have a ladder. That's a real problem. It could be that it creates cloud shadows or wind. All kinds of things. The point I'm trying to get at is we would ask the community what their vision is for this downtown area, and then we would zone it for that. And in that process, you and everybody else who had property or interest in this area could come and say, this is what we want to have. In Burien, I can tell you, I wasn't here for it. They wanted something that was slower. They wanted it pedestrian friendly. They wanted a vital downtown. They wanted a destination. They weren't as interested in sales tax as they were as creating a sense of place. And that's what they got. They took 4 lanes on 152nd, and they made it into 2. How often do you see people going, from more to less? It usually goes the opposite way. Then they slowed it down, and they made it a destination place, restaurants and that sort of thing. And we're working on providing the density in the town square. But we would ask what the residents want to do with this area. And we would get an idea, and then we would zone it appropriately, and then we would start doing the sorts of things that it takes over a period of years to make it happen. So it's a long process, and you just don't start building the one high-rise in 4 blocks and expect it to work. It won't work. It just won't.
Tried it.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'm curious, what happens if the vote fails?
What happens if the vote fails? It depends by how much. So if the vote fails, the simple answer would be the annexation fails, and that's it. So either the city of Seattle or the city of Burien can come back and say we want to try this. Like Burien could say we want to try it again. Seattle could say now we want to try it. So we could see either of those two scenarios, or we could see everybody go, well, 70% of the people up there didn't want any part of it, so okay. I think that's problematic on several levels, but if that's the way it goes, that's the way it goes.
Well, most people I know are
But
I don't know that many.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I think that speaks volumes right there. What we found in the first annexation, and you guys can tell me it's true or not, but it was an understandable phenomenon. The people that were closest to the Burien border tended to prefer the city of Burien. As you got further north, they tended to prefer Seattle. And in the first election, there was like 55, 54% in favor of annexation. So it wasn't a mandate by any stretch of the imagination. There were a lot of people that like being unincorporated. A lot of people who believe that you can stay unincorporated for a long time and nothing will change. That's a myth. And then there were people who felt like Seattle was going to come in and offer to annex, and that hasn't materialized in the future. I don't know.
I've lived in this area a long time, and what I've noticed about unincorporated county is a lot of the services don't exist. A lot of heritage streets. That's my main concern. There's so many streets in this area tonight that can't be.
Yeah, the comment was that a lot of it's kind of observed general decline, especially in the streets. The county has told us that they're not going to invest any more money here, not much anyway. And they've been pretty upfront about it. Good for them. They're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. There's an enormous backlog of utility needs up there, street needs. And you know what? There is no easy way of doing it. But you can either go, we're going to continue to let it go downhill, or we're going to start chipping away and moving in the other direction. But there's no silver bullet, folks. Burien doesn't annex one day and all the potholes go over the next.
That's not right.
This gentleman is next. Oh, I'm sorry, can I have this lady?
When you were talking about maybe like a 54 or 49, what kind of percentage has to make this true?
It's a simple majority, so 50% plus 1.
So the services we're receiving from King County now compared to the services we're going to receive from Burien, can you give us a comparison? What are we going to lose? I know we're not going to gain, are we?
It's tough to quantify it. I don't know. Did you get this from public safety? I don't know where the county's going.
What? I came from the sheriff's office. In the past 3 years, the sheriff's office has been cut 180 positions. We have had to go to a completely different model for policing unincorporated King County. King County was never meant to provide urban level services. It's meant to provide rural level services. For whatever reason, we developed into many, at least suburban, if not urban areas that we are policing as a sheriff's office. That was a huge number. Our services, the things that we did 5 years ago at the sheriff's office, we cannot do anymore. Contracting with King County now represents over 50% of the sheriff's office. The advantage of contracting is that those resources come from the city, they don't come from the county. So being a contract chief and having a contract department means that the city pays for all the services that we provide. So when there are budget cuts, I haven't seen them. They haven't trickled down to my department. They have just, as you probably have seen, less services, less patrol, less officers.
The county still pay your benefit package?
Yes, I work for the sheriff's office from the standpoint of that's the paycheck. But the contract relationship with the city is it's a total cost recovery of what my costs are, what my officers cost, my car, all the things that are involved in the police department are paid by the city.
I was trying to think of how to quantify that for you. If I was to name one thing that would radically change almost immediately, it would be the ability to access your government. So today, Jan comes into my office this afternoon, 4 hours ago, and he goes, I I got this call about crows. Crows. Right? He said, a man called and said, crows are all over his backyard and now one has died. And he wants somebody to come and pick it up. This is a real call this afternoon, right? And without going all into it, he managed to resolve that issue. But the point is that Jan was 12 feet from me in my office. He's my right-hand guy. Somebody can call him directly and say, we got a problem. Right? It may be ridiculous, but it also may be real. And you will find that we are extraordinarily responsive. Something else. You can come to City Council anytime and ask things, say things, get attention, be on television. You can have my direct number. And I just don't think that you're going to get that at the county level. And so if I was to point at one thing where I could say definitely this would change instantly, that would change instantly.
Speaking of animals, like things like code enforcement and animal control, one thing that question that comes to my mind is City of Burien have an ordinance about keeping chickens in your backyard.
Yes.
And what is it?
No roosters, 3 chickens.
Okay. What's like animal?
How did I know that? I didn't know the B&O tax, but I knew the chickens. No, that great question. I should have thought about this. So that is true about the chickens. I mean, we have 3 chickens, no roosters. You can't. I mean, we got some guy with a what is it, the Jaguar or something. Yeah, we do. Seriously, don't get started. But code enforcement is very important. So this area, including Burien, was in the county for 120 years. And it looks like, the way it's planned, you see roads that aren't right angles and all this stuff. And people are used to kind of doing what they want. And so when we first annexed, the first annexation, I was trying to think, well, what can we go do to kind of announce our presence? And I thought, aha, code enforcement. I'm going to go up there and take every junk car off every front lawn, and I'm going to do it this month, just like that. And somebody took me aside and said, well, good fellow. Probably somebody's high school kid's father-son work project. You have to be very careful, when you go in and start doing that sort of thing. It was great advice. So what we learned is that there are code enforcement problems and there are code enforcement problems. And you think you can just go in with a magic wand and clean up a block. It doesn't work that way. Because what we view as junk is sometimes somebody's very valued private property. That is not to say that in the majority of cases, if it's a safety hazard or if it's anything like that, we can do something about it. So I really like the style of the code enforcement we have here. It's intentionally reactive, so we don't go cruising around looking for stuff to tell people to fix. We generally, unless it's egregious, in which case we do, but we generally wait till somebody says, look, my neighbor's got this horrible, they're dumping trash out in the backyard and rats are there now. We'll do something about that, but we don't go looking for it. So we try to be very thoughtful about code enforcement and the way we approach that, because it's very, very, very sensitive. And we've got a great code enforcement guy who's lived here all his life, and we're likely to add another one in this organization. Open projects like
remodels, things like that. If it's not done by the time we annex, we have to start the process over again.
The question was, what if we have like an open project, like a remodel or something going on? What happens is the permits that have been processed in the county, already processed, continue to stay with the county. But on a certain date, we agree on a certain day, and everything from that day forward goes to the city board. There are some cases where we had this happen the last week. I'm just going to say this, our permit process and our inspection process is head and shoulders better than the county. It just is. We had people that said, I'm going to terminate my permit in there, I'm going to start with you guys, and we're going to start over. But the simple answer is that if we started with the county, we'll continue with the county. Other questions? Yes, ma'am. Does Burien have a different law regarding fireworks than unincorporated King County? The answer is yes, we don't allow it. Does it keep people from doing it? Not in my neighborhood. All the law-abiding citizens down in Seahurst and 3-2-pointer started blowing off fireworks about July 1st and stuff on the team. So, but the short answer is it's against the law unless it's permitted or within very, very confined parameters. My brother's a firefighter in Kent. One year when I was working there, somebody burned the roof off an apartment building. We had people killed. A lot of rockets fired at fire engines, and it just getting a little out of hand. There's a time and place for that, and we want to respect that. There's a way of doing it, a place to do it. You're not supposed to do it in city limits where you got 45,000 people living. So, yeah, it's against the law. Are we going out, knocking on doors, checking people's trunks of their cars? No, we're not. But if somebody does something and it happens, they violated the law and they burned somebody's house down, that's a problem.
So if it's just, maybe right in the middle of the road,
well, if somebody's got a bunch of illegal fireworks laying in the road, somebody calls us up and says, the road's about to explode, yeah, we're going to go out and do something. I lived in Auburn for a while. In my neighborhood, these guys do exactly what you said. You bring, just cardboard boxes and these things. The whole neighborhood pile them out there, and then light a garbage can on fire in the middle of the street and gather around it with the fireworks. Like, what's wrong with this picture? But we have that happen all the time. And 2 years ago, we had a problem down at the Cove where somebody got hurt in a situation like that. We like people to use common sense. It doesn't always prevail. Other questions?
What does representation look like for us? When we annex, or do we see on the council?
So the question is, what does representation look like for this area on the council? Well, right now, you're not represented. The closest thing we've got to that is Councilman Robeson, who recently won his election. He was appointed the first time, won the second time, who lives in the kind of sort of the North Burien area. Once this area is incorporated, then anybody can run for any of the council positions that are available. No, please God, no. In the coming election in November, there will be 4 seats up for election. So anybody from this area could run for any of those seats. After annexation. After annexation is implemented. So we would have to succeed at the election. We would have to incorporate, and then we'd have to run and win office in the citywide election. It's not like we would just do that city. Yeah, Scott just mentioned the fact that we have a number of very active advisory boards. We have a planning commission that actually performs a hearing function for the city. That's a statutory function that can hold public hearings. We have parks boards, arts boards. There are a number of advisory boards, the Business and Economic Development Partnership, all of which are intended to advise the city council. But I would feel very bad if we did an annexation up here and that there wasn't some sort of representation on the council from this area. There should be. Any question?
I have a comment. If we stay unincorporated, we're going to have problems with crime because the county is backing off every year. We won't belong to anybody, so this will be no man's land, so the criminals will just congregate in this area. Burien cannot come into the area and arrest them unless they follow them into the area, and Seattle can't come in and arrest them unless they follow them into the area. So any crook that's in the town is going to be at our mercy or vice versa. So we've got to be very careful.
Well, is that technically true?
Well, I mean, our officers do come up here to provide support for the county officer, but he is right as far as that level of enforcement has been diminished over the last 5-6 years in this area. But no, we work very well with, in Seattle also. I mean, Seattle is a very, very fine partner, and if they saw something going on here, they would come over and help. But it's not the same as having dedicated people that take ownership of the area, know the people that are in the area, know where the problem areas are. That's what you get when you have people all the time. That's what you get with BJ. You get that. You get somebody that knows this area and has done a fine job.
I'd like to follow up with that. If and upon annexation, is there new rules that will take effect regarding open containers, public nuisance, loitering in this area?
There are city ordinances, yes.
Okay.
There are city ordinances that some are more strict than county ordinances. And then that's also one of the tools we have available to us to address some of the concerns. the community, is we have that process of developing ordinances.
Yeah, so that was a great question. The question was, so do we have the same laws? Can we enforce open containers and that sort of thing? And Scott said yes, we have similar tools. The beauty of, in my opinion, is what Scott just said. If we got a problem and the cops are going, geez, we got open containers on the street, we can't bust these people because we don't have any laws. They come to my city attorney and he goes, okay, we're going to write an ordinance. And they write an ordinance and it's very specific and it fixes that problem. So one time, it's like the Jubilee days of Kent, we had gangbangers bringing dogs in late at night, right? And after the second year of that, people were getting intimidated. And somebody came to us and said, what can we do about these dogs, right? So what do you do about dogs? And so my attorney, who was a good guy, said, well, here's what we do. And we thought, well, we can only have dogs on leashes and sort of thing. We finally figured out that you could have dogs, but you could only have dogs if you carried them, right? So the little old lady who had a 5-pound poodle, you carried the guy who had a Rottweiler, very unlikely to bring him in. But it gave us something to arrest these guys for if they're bringing their dogs to the Jubilee or whatever it was, cornucopia. So we do have the mechanism to get very specific. We can target something, a problem that the cops bring to us or that anybody brings to us if it's, merits that kind of attention. So that's a very good thing. So yes.
Yeah, I'm addressing that crime situation in which they unincorporated. What the Attorney General did is King County Police, Seattle Police, on that big sting outrage, 6, 7, 8 months ago. You guys would probably love to have that happen again. How many criminals did you get? Yeah. And those criminals know that. And they know that White Center is a hot spot.
Right.
And not for crime, but for being hot.
And many of my officers were also part of that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so
it's cooperated.
Yeah.
We
do, from the line level of police in this area, the greater Seattle, we all work together very well. So even with the federal.
The only bad part, in my mind, is not getting into that boundary.
So I just to follow real quickly on that, one of the things that we have now is BJ has done an extraordinary job of trying to get cooperation with stores about fortify liquor and when they can sell it. We even have a store in Burien that's doing it on a volunteer basis. That might be something that we look at as an ordinance, and then all of a sudden it's not a voluntary basis anymore. So again, the representation of the government and what we can do is something that is very important.
We've done stuff around shoplifting. We've done stuff around identity theft. Every once in a while, the prosecutor will come to us and say, look, I can't prosecute these people because we don't have a law or a local ordinance. And so we'll work with her. We recently did several of those. I forget exactly what they were. But yeah, we do that all the time.
There's a former restaurant up there, El Shalom. It's back just this side of Burien, on 16. And it is covered with graffiti. And how would Burien deal with that regulation?
It's right now. Graffiti is it's like the Bible says about the poor, that will always be with you. And so we try to knock it down the best we can. It oftentimes involves finding who the owners are. We try to be as aggressive and thoughtful as we can. We can't go on private property unless we're given permission to do that. We do have a graffiti program. We do have somebody who's active. We take lots of pictures. I would show files and files and files. We share them with the cops. So we're not perfect, but we do the best we can. Others? Okay. Glad to stay a little while afterwards.
Before you conclude, I just want to say that for the next meeting, it's going to be on July 12th. It's going to be at Dapsy Coffee on 8th. So that's the next meeting for July. We're going to try to do one meeting per month. We're also going to be at Jubilee Day that weekend. We have a booth there. Just our effort to inform people about the issue. But that's again, I'm thinking there's only Mike and I and Chief Kimber here. The best way that we can get the community more informed is if you guys spread the word out, get people to come to one of the informational forums so they can ask questions. Grab the FAQ, pass them out to your friends, your neighbors, your co-worker, so get more people to come and ask questions. My contact info is toward the end of the FAQ, and also have my card there.
I wanted to thank again Jessica and David for giving us the space.
Absolutely.
Provided we got cookies from them and stuff, and it was great. I had three. Really like coming into the local business. Remember what I said about the back of this? If you have other questions, there's a great website, and I'm telling you, the FAQs are all there. If you see something, that you see a mistake or something that needs to be updated, please tell us. This is a bit of an evolution. We're doing the best we can. If you have any questions, Jan is kind of the head guy on this, so ask me if there's something that comes up. And please, whether you agree with the annexation or you don't, ask people to go. We really need to understand what this community wants to do. If they don't want to join Burien, okay. Well, let's send a clear message one way or the other so we understand and quit messing around with this thing.
Is there going to be a meeting in Boulevard Park? The information will be like that. Are we going to have a meeting down there?
Are we going to have a meeting?
Well, the thing is, we're trying to geographically, spread out all the forum, or the meeting. I am currently in contact with, for example, we don't know yet, but we will try. We'll try our best. We're working on it. We're working on it very, very hard. Yes. Yeah.
We truly are trying to be kind of strategic geographically. If you have any homeowners or any clubs or something like that where you'd like us to come speak, we're happy to do it. You kind of have to ask us for legal reasons, but we're more than happy to come out to even small rooms and kind of sit down and talk with them. So please, we really like talking to folks. But I like getting questions I don't always know the answers to because it makes me think. Okay, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.